Good morning all present over here. So today we will be going to know about the technical and structural information of WDM series of diesel locomotive in Indian Railways. The Indian Locomotive Class WDM-2 is a class of diesel-electric locomotive that was developed in 1962 by American Locomotive Company, ALCO, for Indian Railways. The model name stands for Broad Gauge W Diesel D Mixed Traffic M Engine, second generation 2. They entered service in 1962. A total of 2,700 plus WDM-2 was built at ALCO and Benares Locomotive Works BLW, Varanasi between 1962 and 1998, which made them the most numerous class of mainline diesel locomotive until its successor the WDM-3A. The WDM-2 is one of the most successful locomotives of Indian Railways, serving both passenger and freight trains for over 59 years. A few WDM-2 units were exported to neighboring countries like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Despite the introduction of more modern types of locomotives like WDG-4 and electrification, a significant number are still in use, both in mainline and departmental duties. As of October 2021, 10 locomotives still retain operational status. On the mainline is WDM-2, with further examples in service as WDM-3A or WDM-2S. The WDM-2G is a class of diesel-electric genset locomotive used in Indian Railways. It is one of the rarest locomotives in India, with only 2 units being produced by Diesel Loco Modernization Works. The locomotives were produced with an intention of being fuel efficient and to be used for light to medium duties such as short passenger runs along with occasional shunting. They are one of the only 2 classes of locomotives in India to feature multiple prime movers, the other example being WDS-6G, which was designed solely for shunting. They have a rated power of 2,400 HP. The WDM-2G are inspired by the hundreds of gensets in service over North America. Being the first locomotives to be built by Diesel Loco Modernization Works, they have certain features which are not found on regular locomotives in Indian Railways, such as extensive use of marker and indication lamps and a cab structure inspired by the ones found on American locomotives like EMDSD 40-2. The locos, for the first time in India, featured K5LA multi-chime horn, which proved to be a little quieter for Indian operations. On the inside, the locomotive features 3 prime movers, each of Cummins QSK-19 type, which is a 6-cylinder 4-stroke engine producing a power of 800 HP. The locomotive retained the ALCO high adhesion bogie from the WDM-2/3 locomotives but was moving by TM4907 for each axle, which are a type of direct current traction motor. The locomotive has a weight of 117 tons distributed over 6 axles, making an axle load of 19.5 tons axle. The low weight limited the tractive effort to 37.2 tons force while allowing a speed up to 120 km/h. Apart from that, the locomotives have dynamic braking, conventional braking and vigilance control device for driver alertness and safety. The major advantage of these locomotives operationally offer is the reduced fuel consumption and lower emission. They reportedly consume 20% lesser fuel than locomotives of same specifications and power in the railways. This also means that the resultant nitrous oxides emission is lesser in these locos, making them more environmentally friendly than the previous diesel locomotives of Indian Railways. 2 locomotives numbered 80,000 and 80,001 entered service in 2013 after RDSO oscillation trials, which certified them to be fit for 120 km/h, 75 mph on mainline tracks and 105 km/h, 65 mph on regular tracks. 3. The locomotives were initially allocated to Itarsi ET Loco Shed of West Central Railway. However, in 2019, they were moved to Diesel Loco Shed Vatva VTA of Western Railway, where they are currently used for shunting purposes. Despite the initial fanfare within the media, the locomotive did not enter serial production for Indian Railways. The major reasons for its failure can be attributed to the fact that the requirement of low-powered locomotives has become quite low due to the long and heavy trains run in the country, the exception being shunting duties, for which plenty locos are available. The chief reason why production was not continued was due to the persuasion of route electrification in Indian Railways. Due to this, the Indian Railways was not very keen on adding a whole new fleet of diesel locomotives, which even after being fuel efficient for a diesel, were still inferior to the electric locomotives, both in efficiency and power. The Indian locomotive class WDM-3A is a class of diesel-electric locomotive that was developed in 1993 by Banaras Locomotive Works BLW, Varanasi for Indian Railways. The model name stands for broad gauge W diesel D mixed traffic M engine, with 3,300 horsepower 3A. The WDM-3A is a later classification of earlier WDM-2C. They entered service in 1994. A total of 143 plus were built at Alco and Banaras Locomotive Works between 1994 and 2003, with rest of the 1246 units being rebuilt from WDM-2, which made them the most numerous class of mainline diesel locomotive until the WDG-4. WDM-3B diesel locomotive class was developed in 2005 after the WDM-3C and WDM-3D. It actually is a variant of the WDM-3D, though it shares its power rating with the WDM-3A. Only 23 numbers were built, road numbers number 14,144 to number 14,167, making them very rare. It has the same engine as the WDM-3D, despite having a power deficit of 200 horsepower. It also looks the same, shares the same body shell, control cabin, undercarriage and the high-adhesion bolsterless bogies of the WDM-3D. The difference is that unlike the WDM-3D, the WDM-3B is not microprocessor controlled but uses something called E-type excitation for locomotive control. The WDM-3B seems to be the result of the railways trying to cut the WDM-3D down to size by eliminating its troublesome features like microprocessor control. But now 3Bs are being converted into 3Ds. WDM-3Bs are housed at upsheds like Lucknow, Gonda, Jhansi, Samastipur, Patratu etc. And many were famously named Gajraj. The WDM-3B does not adhere to the HP-based naming convention, as WDM-3A already represented 3,100 horsepower. IR just assigned the vacant WDM-3B class to this type. The Indian locomotive class WDM-3D is a class of diesel-electric locomotive that was developed in 2003 by Banaras Locomotive Works BLW, Varanasi for Indian Railways. The model name stands for broad gauge W diesel D mixed traffic M engine with 3,300 horsepower 3D. The engine is classified WDM-3D, though it outputs only 3,300 horsepower and not 3,400 horsepower as the name should suggest. They entered service in 2003. A total of 590 plus WDM-3D were built at Banaras Locomotive Works BLW, Varanasi between 2003 and 2016. The WDM-3D is one of the most successful locomotives of Indian Railways, serving both passenger and freight trains. A few WDM-3D units were exported or gifted to neighboring countries like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. A significant number of these locomotives are still in use, both on mainline and departmental duties. As of October 2021, most of the locomotives still retain operational status on the mainline as WDM-3D, with further examples having been converted from WDM-3B. WDM-3D was developed by Banaras Locomotive Works and Research Design and Standards Organization in 2003. It was the result of DLW integrating the best features of EMDGT-46 Mach and EMDGT-46 PAC with the Alco platform. The first one was built in July 2003, numbered number 11,101. The first few units, 5, were all homed at Krishnarajapuram but were later transferred to Erode. Serial production started in late 2005, with locos being allotted to almost all major BG diesel sheds. Earlier WDM-3Ds had issues with their electronics, which probably led to the development of the WDM-3B in 2005, the same WDM-3D without microprocessor control. The class is considered successful with over 590 units being built. The production has now ceased as DLW has moved to manufacturing more advanced locos. One unit number 11121 has a modified short hood, similar to WDP-4 and is homed at Erode. It is the higher-powered version of the Indian locomotive class WDM-3A. These locos have a 3,300 horsepower power pack, with maximum available traction power of 2,925 horsepower. The engine is an enhanced version of the 16-cylinder Alco 251C model with a max speed of 160 km per hour. The bogies are improved fabricated welded, Alco high-adhesion Co-Co bogies with stem-type vertical and lateral dampers in place of I-type, which helps reduce wheel slip and maintenance. The loco features left-hand drive, WDG-3A style high-adhesion bogies, air cylinder under footboard, WDP-4 style fuel tanks, engine doors like WDP-4, marker lights outside cabin doors, electronic horn, high-capacity buffers. Components and auxiliaries have been improved with the aim of making the duty schedule longer between maintenance visits to the shed. Sri Lanka 10 WDM 3D locomotives were purchased by Sri Lanka Railways in 2012. They were the longest and most powerful locomotives owned by Sri Lanka Railways at that time. They were allocated the M10 class. However, some specifications are somewhat different for SLR. This class was used for the construction work of Talaimannar and Kenkasanthara railway lines. After extending the northern line to Jaffna and beyond, M10s were used for passenger services including Yal Devi on the northern line. As of August 2020, all units of this class are still in service. Bangladesh on 27 July 2020, due to overaging of existing Bangladesh Railways locomotives, IR gave 10 WDM 3D units for free under its Grant Assistance Plan. The Railways has modified the locos to suit the maximum height restrictions in BR, and the donated locomotives, 6 to 8 year old, have 28 years of serviceable life left. India formally handed over the locomotives in a virtual ceremony on July 27. The vehicles cost an estimated 600 million rupees, $8 million United States dollars, to manufacture. The very extremely rare WDM-3F was the result of the last and final experiment in IR's drive for more powerful Alcos. This one is rated 3,600 horsepower and only 4 were produced, number 11,287, number 11,321, number 11,325, number 11,342. Number 11,287 has a unique aerodynamic design where the ends taper upwards, picture above. All WDM-3Fs are based at Gutique GY, and share all the features of the WDM-3D including roof-mounted DBRs except the number 11,287. Though high-powered, this class apparently didn't work out well because after the WDM-3F, IR realized that it is futile to try and crank more power of the Alcos as they were too old and outdated and shifted attention to the EMD. This also marked the beginning of the end of the Alco domination on Indian railways. The WDM-7 is a diesel-electric locomotive of Indian Railways. It has been manufactured by Benares Locomotive Works BLW, Varanasi. The model name stands for broad gauge W diesel D mixed traffic M engine. Today, these are found exclusively at Chennai Central and nearby area. These units have been retrofitted with air brakes, in addition to the original vacuum brakes. The WDM-7 locos have a maximum speed of 105 km per hour, 65 miles per hour, restricted to 100 km per hour, 62 miles per hour, when run long hood forward. The gear ratio is 94:17. 15 of these locomotives, road numbers number 11,001 to number 11,015, were built from 1987 to 1989 as a low-powered, lightweight version of the original Alco. Like the WDM-6, maybe IR wanted a lower-powered locomotive to handle small rake local and passenger services. However, all sheds declined them and they ended up at Ernakulam where they were used to handle local and shuttle services with good degrees of efficiency. Becoming aware of their abilities, SR moved all the WDM-7s out of Ernakulam to Tondiarpet, where they are housed today. These days, they are seen being used as shunters at Chennai Central or for light passenger haulage. One, number 11,008, has been modified to run on biodiesel. These CoCo diesel-electric locomotives were designed primarily for branch line duties, top speed 105 km per hour. They have two 3-axle bogies. The power pack is a 12-cylinder Alco 251B unit. They are a lower-powered variant of the WDM2, the latter produces 2,600 horsepower of usable power, as opposed to the WDM7 which produces 2,000 horsepower. They were formerly housed at Erode and Golden Rock as well. They are reliable and rugged locomotives even though low-powered. They can be easily recognized by the lack of grills on the short hood. In fact, they look exactly the same as the WDM2 except for the clean, short hood forward nose without grills. 2 locos currently operate on a mixture of biodiesel and diesel. As of today, all 15 built are still in service. So this is the end of the video, hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed, please like and share the video. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe it. Don't forget to send feedback in comments section. Goodbye.